Good morning from WGAO Power 88 Radio, live from Dean College in Franklin, Massachusetts. You are listening to Midnight Mania Sports with Austin, DeCouta, and George Hathaway. Austin, we have a great show ahead of us today. We're going to try to squeeze everything in here in the hour that we have on the show. But first, let's jump into the top news that has been surfacing the sports world throughout the last week. The Seahawks pick up Josh Gordon off of the waivers. And Russell Wilson reportedly said that he also wanted to get Antonio Brown as well. And the Seahawks are a hot team as of late, and just adding Josh Gordon to their roster is kind of going to build a lot more momentum for them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic in Seattle. You have an interesting receiving core. You have Tyler Lockett on the outside who can stretch the field. Coming off a huge game on Sunday, he's really established himself as one of the top receivers in the NFL. This season, you have DK Metcalf, a rookie receiver who was taken in the second round by the Seahawks, who hasn't really proved himself yet as NFL ready. So Gordon can come in and really open up the field for the Seahawks, get some toughness over the middle, and bring another option to Russell Wilson, who really doesn't have that many different targets to throw to.
No, he doesn't. Josh Gordon they're going to be a powerhouse in the NFC and a team to definitely watch in the late run as the season progresses. Another top headline, Austin, is that Steven Strasburg opts out of his contract with the Nationals. So what does this mean for Strasburg and the Nationals after coming off a World Series win?
Well, it means a few things. It means that Strasburg thinks that he can get more money than what he had left on his deal before he opted out. So Strasburg's a guy who proved himself this postseason as a dominant postseason pitcher, as a guy that you can rely on in big games. Now, for Strasburg, he's going to go into the market and seek between a 5 and 7 year deal to help him finish off his career rather than opt into what he had left in Washington. And he'll likely get a pretty solid deal. There is a chance that he re-signs with Washington, and I honestly think that's the best case scenario for Strasburg, is to go back to Washington where he's comfortable. And I think that's the most likely thing to happen, is for Strasburg to re-sign with Washington. For the Nationals, though, if Strasburg does not re-sign, you're in danger of losing Strasburg and Rendon this offseason. We'll talk more about free agents later, but for Strasburg, probably the best move for him to see and test the market, because at worst, what he's going to get is more money than that deal he was signed to already. So he's going to make some more money due to his strong performance this postseason, but I do expect him to re-sign with the Nationals.
Strasburg definitely deserves the money that he's going to be getting coming his way, just because of how he performed so well in the World Series and even the postseason as well. Now, going back to the NFL, the Falcons are signing the Patriots' former punter, Ryan Allen. He is the Falcons' 5th punter this year. The Falcons are struggling this year. They're not looking like a good team. They lost Sanu as well. He had a great game last night with the Patriots. But, I mean, this is just kind of how the season's been going for the Falcons. They have to trade a lot. They have to get a lot of new players. And a 5th punter in the season, you're about 10 weeks in. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting, too, because a lot of times teams will just kind of suffer with 1 or 2 punters throughout the year and find somebody solid. But to rotate through 5 different punters already, and we're just about to enter Week 10, is a very interesting accomplishment. Allen's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, a 2-time Ray Guy Award winner, where he averaged 45.3 yards per punt on his NFL career. So he's a solid punter. He should probably shore up the punting position for the Falcons the rest of the season. They also released kicker Matt Bryant a few days ago, who 43-year-old Bryant, a veteran kicker in the league, came out of retirement to come kick for the Falcons, but just struggled too much this year. They had to cut ties with him. So during the Falcons bye week, they make 2 big changes to their special teams units.
Staying in the NFL and kind of going to more of a wardrobe malfunction, I guess you could call it, for both Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, who were forced to change their cleats at halftime. Odell was wearing a Joker-themed cleats. And, I mean, I guess that one is kind of like, self-explanatory. He's not really wearing the team's primary, secondary colors. But Odell's been known to be a very fashionable kind of guy on and off the field with different types of cleats. And he had this earlier. He had the watch problem.
Right. Him and Landry are 2 very unique personalities. And when paired together, they're very zesty, they're very outgoing, they're very vibrant. And they're 2 guys that are going to try and push the boundaries. And we've seen that this year, especially with the watch, with the different cleats. But it brings up the question again, is the NFL the no-fun league?
I mean, the words definitely kind of correspond together, the NFL. But, I mean, Jarvis Landry, this one really shocked me, is because he was wearing a gold and orange color cleat. And that kind of has a Cleveland Brown color. I know the gold isn't, but
it's close enough.
It's close, and I think they looked good, and they kind of matched the uniform. I think that's what the NFL wants, are these players to match uniforms. But if you look at Stephon Diggs, he wore neon green cleats during a game a few weeks ago. Nobody said anything about that. Is it just because they're Odell and Jarvis Landry, who are known to really put on this kind of persona of having many different style cleats? I think that's probably why then they're kind of like we're targeted for that reason, especially with Odell's past.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, it's not a big deal as cleats. Just let the guys go out there and play. Doesn't matter what they're wearing as long as there's no profanity or any marketing or branding. Just let them go out there and play. But at the same time, if you're management in the Cleveland Browns organization, you already have enough distraction. You already have enough problems this year. Just go out there and put on normal cleats and just kind of, you don't need to create another headline. If you're on the Patriots,
that would not fly.
They're not going to go with
that. Would not fly.
That would not fly on the Pats. But if you're on a good winning team and you want to go out there and wear a pair of cleats that promote like a charity or something that you really care about, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, they usually do that.
To come out and just throw Joker cleats on, it's just a distraction to the team.
It is. And Odell usually has those Joker hand gloves as well, the smiling face. I mean, Odell has been known to have a lot of different style on the field. And our last top headline is that Mexico beats the United States in Olympic baseball qualifiers. Do you find this shocking as a really avid baseball fan, Austin?
It's interesting. I think the USA team needs a lot of work. They have a lot of young guys on the team. It's a team that isn't full of veteran stars like you might expect. They have a lot of young AA, single A players on there, guys who haven't had a ton of MLB experience. And in this Olympic qualifier round with all these young guys in there, it's something that isn't too shocking to me to see them lose to Mexico, a team that has a lot more talent and a lot more exciting prospects.
Yeah, and this is definitely a new thing for players in America to kind of play against different style baseball, because you have different types of personalities all meshing into one, and talent as well. You're not playing with all these MLB tier 1 stars. You're in a mix and a slew of different players. But we're going to be transitioning over, Austin, now to Monday Night Football, which just concluded. And Austin, how about them Cowboys beating the Giants 37-18?
Wow, you guys beat a 2-6 team. Congrats, George.
Thank you. I will gladly take a blowout win. Prescott, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Ezekiel Elliott, 139 yards on the ground. Daniel Jones, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And he had 64 yards rushing. Kind of weird. He had more rushing yards than Saquon Barkley. That was the kind of night, kind of like Lamar Jackson. We'll be getting that into a moment. But the Cowboys, Austin, they are a real deal team.
The Cowboys are a decent football team. I'm still not convinced they're the real deal. We started this show back in September, and George jumped right on the Cowboy bandwagon after a 3-0 start.
It was not a band.
And then
we weren't even 3 weeks in when this show started. I said that way before. I was in week 1.
Okay. Well, remind me the next 3 games they went 0-3, including a crushing loss to the 1-7 New York Jets. So until the Cowboys can rattle off 6 more wins in a row, I'm not believing them as legitimate at all, because they lost the one game the Jets won.
So we have a question. I'm going to answer it real quick just because it kind of ties into this. Who is the team in the NFC to watch out for besides the Vikings? And I'm telling you right now, it's the Dallas Cowboys. It's the Dallas Cowboys. And Dak Prescott is on the verge of winning MVP.
Hold on, not to interrupt you, but you said besides the Vikings?
Yes, besides the Vikings.
Not the 8-0 only undefeated team in the NFL, the 49ers.
This is what the question was. I'm just answering the question how it was asked.
Well, no, they did ask, right. And what team is there to look out for besides the Vikings?
And I say it's the Cowboys, it's not the 49ers.
Or the 7-1 Saints.
Nope.
Makes sense.
It's the Cowboys.
Well, here's the thing.
We'll be seeing you at AT&T Stadium for the NFC Championship game.
49ers are so much better than the Cowboys. The Saints are so much better than the Cowboys.
Do they have all three aspects? The 49ers, they might have offense. They
Yes. Do
barely
you
have
watch
offense. They
49ers
have
games?
defense. They have great defense. I'll give them that.
Yeah, they're ranked first in the league in total defense and 7th in the league in total offense.
Yeah, that's 7th, though. I mean, what are the Cowboys are absolutely amazing. They are a great team. Prescott has been balling out. He's on the verge of winning MVP.
On the verge. It's not even week 10.
We have MVP talks. I mean, Russell Wilson's up there, and who else do you have? You have Dak Prescott for MVP.
Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson are in the conversation.
I mean, Christian
the
McCaffrey
conversation
as well.
dominated by
But
Watson and Wilson.
Dak Prescott, I think, is personally, I mean, not personally, I think statistically as well, Dak Prescott should be up there on the list.
It's an interesting argument. I'd say he's doing enough to put himself in the conversation.
He's been playing phenomenal. And so have the Cowboys as of late. I mean, yes, they might have had that really tough 0-3 record. I mean, after they won the first 3 games, but I mean, Sam Darnold, he played great for the Jets that night. I mean, what can I say? The defense just didn't show up. And I'll be honest, the defense, they didn't show up, and the offense didn't play well that game. But other than that, I just think that the Cowboys are the real deal. They beat 8 straight teams, 8 straight NFC East teams. They haven't lost in that 8-game span.
Yeah,
so they're looking good in the NFC East.
Even if the Cowboys...
The NFC East is kind of a tough division if you look at it.
It's tough for the top 2 teams, the Eagles and the Cowboys.
And that's it. And that's
Besides
pretty tough.
The Redskins are 1-8, Giants are 2-7.
But here, you could get the Giants can come out of nowhere here and there.
They're 2-7. They'd have to win 7 games in a row.
You praise Danny Dimes all the time.
I do. I like Daniel Jones. He's a good rookie.
No, clearly not.
He's going to be
winning
good.
games. I don't think so.
He's playing with nothing.
He's not like what Dak Prescott was in his rookie season.
Never did I say that. I'm saying Daniel Jones.
I'm just making an NFL.
quarterback.
I'm just making a comparison right now between Dak's rookie year and Daniel Jones's rookie year. Dak was superb.
Dak is a decent football player. He'll never be great. He's having
He's an
very
elite
good
quarterback.
start to the season.
He's elite.
He is not elite.
He is an
Remember
elite
the stats
quarterback.
we went over from last year where Dak Prescott ranked in the bottom third of every passing category?
But that's last year.
So he's elite based off 9 games of this season?
He's been playing well. He wants his money. And if Jerry Jones is gonna pay him the big bucks, Dak Prescott better be out there week in and week out and playing top tier football.
Well, we'll see what happens with the Cowboys. It's going to be an interesting run the next few weeks with that team and their so-called MVP candidate, Dak Prescott.
I think so. But we're going to be transitioning over maybe to a sore subject for both you and I and all the other Patriots fans in the country, that last night's Sunday night football game between the Patriots and Ravens did not go the way Patriots fans wanted to go.
Yikes.
Patriots lost their first game 37-20 against this red hot, or should I say purple hot, Ravens team. Brady went 30 for 46 with 285 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Lamar Jackson 17 for 23 with 163 in the air, 1 touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And I didn't really like Brady's performance last night. He didn't really play the offense that we are used to kind of seeing Brady play, except that Sanu had 81 yards and Edelman had 85. So both of them very close with each other. Brady kind of looking at both of them throughout the game, and it's kind of upsetting to see this just because of how much you and I and the media as well have praised this Patriots defense, and they really just couldn't stop the run game last night.
Yeah, the Pats defense struggled, and what I saw a lot of while watching them broadcast with Chris Collinsworth, he displayed how the Patriots defensive line really did not have a clue on how to defend Lamar Jackson. They ran the read option many times, ran the triple option many times, and guys like Lawrence Guy on the defensive line didn't know how to switch or follow the ball. So it really prevented the Patriots defense from doing anything because the defensive line wasn't able to track Jackson the entire game, allowing him to get to the second level and creating 7-yard gains on almost every rushing attempt. I mean, Jackson ran for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Pats, which is unheard of for a quarterback to do against the Patriots. And Mark Ingram also torched them for 115 yards, which is more concerning to me because Mark Ingram's been a solid back for a while. He's not a Pro Bowl, All-Pro guy, but he's a good, solid running back. But Patriots are allowing him to run for 115 yards on the ground when their defense is pretty solid all season long. And the whole Lamar Jackson thing was 62 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I'll take
It's
that.
concerning, but you're not going to face that many quarterbacks who have that ability.
No.
You go to Carson Wentz this after the bye week and the Eagles, and Wentz is a solid quarterback, but he's not going to run for what Jackson did. So you don't really have to game plan because Jackson's one of a kind, and he's a guy that is going to torch you with his legs, unlike any other quarterback in the NFL. So I'm not super worried about that. It's going to be playoff time when you have to be concerned about Lamar Jackson. But I'm more concerned over the fact that Mark Ingram ran for 115. Gus Edwards had a touchdown and 27 yards. Patriots didn't really allow anything through the air. I mean, Jackson didn't throw the football that often because he didn't have to. He was 17 of 23 for 163 and a touchdown. It was a conservative passing approach, and it worked for the Ravens as they played it off the run. So the bye week for the Patriots, George, could not have come.
No, it couldn't have. And they're going to kind of like recuperate after this loss. And the Patriots do need this bye week that they can definitely, like I said, they can recuperate. They can kind of, maybe the defense can kind of figure out some things that they haven't been doing so well. I think that comes down to fundamentals. Fundamentally, the Patriots did not look sharp Sunday night. They missed a lot of key tackles, especially tackling up high, not down low, and especially with a very running heavy offense that the Ravens have. That's something you definitely need to have is low tackling. And the defense, I think what they should have done is maybe just did some more blitzing to kind of give some pressure to Lamar Jackson if they kind of spread that offensive line out more rather than keeping it so bunched up for Jackson to move within the pocket. If they kind of spread that out, have Jackson roll off to the side, then the defense can kind of shift that way better and they have kind of a better angle where the ball is at, because Lamar Jackson on Sunday night was very tricky with the ball and the way how he'd have a QB keeper, he'd play action to Mark Ingram, and then he just hold the ball there for a second and then pull it away at the last second.
Yeah, those are the read options that make it like really tough. And like Collinsworth was saying on the game, I don't know if you saw like all the plays he was going through. Mm-hmm. Lawrence Guy especially, I saw one of them where he just had no clue how to defend against that type of play. And for the Patriots, they haven't had to face that quarterback who does that.
No,
and when Lamar,
like
you said, George, is so good at doing it, it makes it extra tough.
It does, and on top of that, the Patriots' offense just couldn't produce. I mean, the defense did decent, but it's not like how we've been praising them as much and how well they've been performing. But the Patriots, it's Week 10, Austin, and they cannot find the run game. They had 17 rush attempts, which is the lowest they've had all season, 74 total yards of rushing offense on the ground. Sony Michel with 4 carries as well. I mean, the Patriots, the Baltimore defense is a scary defense with Earl Thomas and Marcus Peters. But I mean, Marcus Peters, sometimes he can be a piece of burnt toast, and he's kind of getting up there, and he really does not have that speed that he used to have.
Yeah, Peters got traded from the Rams just a couple weeks ago to the Ravens for not much compensation. He's a guy who is trying to resurrect his career with the Ravens. Played okay yesterday, but the Patriots really couldn't hit the big play yesterday, George. Sanu had 10 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. Edelman had 10 catches for 89 yards. Both receivers averaging less than 10 yards a catch, which is kind of concerning because Pats really couldn't stretch the field at all. The one play they stretched the field on was the Tom Brady pass 30 yards down the sideline to James White on the beautiful catch by White. Otherwise, this game was just basically a ultra-conservative Patriots offense that didn't seem to work. As you said, the running game is very concerning as they just can't get anything going. Sony Michel just had 4 carries for 18 yards and continues to have a sophomore slump, so to speak. And I don't know if it's all his fault. The offensive line.
It's the offensive line. We were just about to jump into
the offensive line is not what it is last year. Obviously, you lost Trent Brown. You've had injuries with David Andrews on the interior. You've had guys like Shaq Mason, Marcus Cannon banged up. But we actually got a question from one of the listeners that we sent in earlier today, and he asked if the Patriots should have taken the chance to trade for Trent Williams to replace Marshall Newhouse. And Trent Williams, if you're not aware, is the left tackle for the Redskins. He actually held out for the first 8 weeks of the season. Does not like the Redskins. Not a Redskin guy at all.
I don't blame him.
Wants to be traded. And part of the reason is, this is actually a fascinating story. Fascinating as in fascinating how incompetent the Redskins doctors are. But, tragedy could have struck for Trent Williams. Williams saw the doctors 5 years ago because of a growth, I believe, on his neck it was. And the doctors actually told him it was something minor, nothing to worry about, don't even worry about it, no problem. Back in May, Trent Williams finds out he has cancer. And then he almost dies.
I did hear about this story.
He almost dies. So then he's like, well, I don't trust the Redskins anymore. Yeah. Williams wants to be traded. They don't trade him. He holds out. He finally comes back to play football. He's still not going to practice. There's still a lot going on with him. But he's a guy who is a great football player. He's healthy again, which is great to see. But he's a tremendous football player who, that situation in Washington, you can't blame the guy for wanting to get out.
No,
so it's not a
all.
Character concern to me that he wanted to be traded. I would want to be traded too if they did that to me.
And kind of I think this whole 2019 for sports, there's been a lot of controversy with the doctors on teams and players. And we're kind of looking back early, kind of mid 2019 when Kevin Durant with his Achilles, he wasn't ready and he went into the game. And
Same thing with DeMarcus Cousins too.
Exactly,
Cousins was banged up.
Yeah. And now, and then the Trent Williams story as well. So there has to just be better communication and more precaution, especially in a contact-heavy sport like football, especially. In basketball, yes, there's a lot of contact, but football, you think of a very contact sport, it's football. And I believe health comes first for any player. Because, even David Andrews for the Patriots, he had a blood clot in his heart. So, taking the season off for him and really trying to get back to 100% is key. And the offensive line for the Patriots, Brady got sacked twice for a loss of 17 yards. Now, the Patriots have a tough, 4 games coming up. A loss to the Ravens, and after the bye week is the Eagles. Then they play the Chiefs one of those games. I think it's the last game. Well, and then they play the Cowboys after the Eagles.
To go back to the question too, George, I don't think the Patriots should have traded for Trent Williams. I think it would have been too high of an asking price. But like you said, they have a tough schedule coming up where Marshall Newhouse is going to have to step up at tackle to help this Patriots team. He's struggled a lot this season as Newhouse, and if he's going to, remain in this lineup, and if the Patriots are going to continue to trust him to protect your entire legacy of the Patriots, then there's going to be some issues because he seems like he can't do it. So the next few weeks for the Patriots, they have a bye week this week. They will go to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, come back home Sunday, November 24th versus the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh.
I know, George, you'll be watching that game.
Definitely.
Then they will travel on December 1st to the Houston Texans, come back home the following week, week 14 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The last 3 games, a little bit easier for the Pats.
Yeah.
They go to Cincinnati for the Bengals, come back home for the Bills, and then back home to finish it off versus the Miami, who now have a win, the Miami Dolphins. And now, let me remind you, the Miami Dolphins beat the New York Jets.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
And do you know who the New York Jets beat in their one win?
I'm taking my headset off.
That's right. That's the Dallas Cowboys, George. So the Miami Dolphins beat the Jets, which means, right?
Well, it's transitive property, okay.
No. It means that the Dolphins can beat the Cowboys.
That's what transitive property means.
What's that?
That's what transitive property means. But
transitive property?
I don't know, some math term. I've seen this for the last 2 days on all of social media that henceforth the Dolphins beat the Cowboys in some weird mystical, I don't know.
Well, I will be watching
way.
Any Cowboys game in the next couple of weeks, but it's time, George, to talk about one of the most important things that's happened in the last week, one of the most exciting things that's happened in the last week, and that is the Washington Nationals are finally World Series champions. They've waited long enough to do so. They had an incredible run, a run that was unlikely, a run that was unpredicted, and one that's going to be memorable for years to come. the Nationals beat the Astros. And in that series, one of the most interesting things was a home team never won a game. The Nationals went to Houston to start things out, won the first 2 games. Astros then traveled to the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., win 3 straight. Nationals head back to Houston and win the last 2 games to win it. Nationals having a blast at their parade, an organization with a lot of veteran players, players who have worked their whole career to get to this moment, and they do deserve it. But as we talked about, George, there could be a couple guys leaving the Nationals, and it's this time we have to talk about our way too early free agent predictions here on Midnight Mania Sports. So the first free agent that we're going to bring up is Garrett Cole. For those of you who haven't heard the name Garrett Cole before, if you watch the World Series, you should know he's the guy who A.J. Hinch, the Astros manager, did not bring in Game 7, which may have cost them the game. Cole is one of the best pitchers in baseball, expected to be the American League Cy Young winner this season.
And well-deserved.
So he is expected to get a massive contract, something along the lines of $300 million, depending on how many years teams want to give him or what the average salary per year is. But Cole could be another incredibly expensive get. But some of the landing spots that have been talked about, some of the landing spots that have been predicted, the Yankees, the Phillies, re-signing with the Astros. So it's going to be an interesting, whirlwind of where he could go.
You know where I think he should go back? To Pittsburgh. He should be going back to Pittsburgh because he's on the Pirates.
He will not be going back to Pittsburgh. That is for sure. The Pirates are not in, the buyer's mode at all. They don't be looking to buy anyone. They are sellers. At the deadline last year, they got rid of Garrett Cole for a reason. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Pirates do anything this offseason.
Another free agent, Austin, is Anthony Rendon. I mean, he's played pretty well on the season. 34.
Anthony Rendon.
I'm sorry.
Rendon is one of the most underrated players, George, of the year, of the last couple seasons. Rendon batted .319 this year with a .412 on-base percentage and an OPS of over 1,000. But he's a guy who hadn't got a lot of attention until the World Series. 34 homers, 126 RBI this season. Batted .300, at least 25 homers the last 3 years. So, George, some more landing spots. I was looking at a couple ESPN articles earlier, a couple articles on MLB.com, and the consensus has seemed to be the Phillies, the Mets, the White Sox, the Braves are in on Rendon. That's, again, Phillies, Mets, White Sox, Braves. And Garrett Cole, I predict, will go to the Yankees, just to go back to that for a second. I think Cole's going to sign in with the Yankees. I think Rendon will be a Philadelphia Philly. It makes sense. They need a third baseman. They haven't had a third baseman in the last 4. They haven't had a third baseman since... I can't remember the last time they had a good third baseman. Maybe Mike Schmidt. I mean, going back to the 80s, they had... This year, the last 4 years, they've had a guy named Michael Franco. I don't know if you've ever heard of Franco, but consistently bats .230, makes a lot of errors, not very good at baseball.
Ooh.
And then before Franco, they had a couple, kind of scrubby players who weren't too good. So it makes sense. They need the position. They have the money. And the owner, John Middleton, said he wants to spend money. So I think Anthony Rendon is going to the Philadelphia Phillies this offseason. George, do you have any idea where you'd predict Rendon to go?
I think he'd be a great fit in Philadelphia, considering all the needs that Philadelphia needs. And it looks like your Phillies are going to be very busy this offseason with free agency. And I do agree with your prediction with Cole, even though I'd like to see him stay and maybe re-sign with the Astros. But if the Yankees get him, I mean, that's a whole different story, and that could change the AL for next season. But with Rendon, the Phillies is the best spot for him, considering that they definitely do need a third baseman, and I think he'd fit well in Philadelphia.
Yeah, one of the biggest needs for the Phillies has been pitching. They weren't able to, get anywhere this year, finishing .500 due to their poor pitching. They made a couple different moves to try and get some experience with this pitching staff. Joe Girardi brought in as manager. Brian Price brought in as the pitching coach. So complete overhaul of the coaching staff, try and change things up, but I think Rendon would be a good fit in Philadelphia. Our next impending free agent and our way too early prediction, Madison Bumgarner, the Giants legend. He spent his entire career out there with the San Francisco Giants, won 3 World Series with the team, and is a guy who has been one of the most consistent pitchers in baseball. The Giants have tendered a qualifying offer to Bumgarner, so he has the option of accepting a 1-year deal if he doesn't feel like he gets anything in the market. But Bumgarner has been with the Giants since 2009, came up as a 19-year-old and started 1 game, pitched in 4 appearances that year, all the way now to his 11th year in the league, where he went 9-9 with a 3.90 ERA. Bumgarner's underappreciated, George. 4-time All-Star, never won a Cy Young though, but has won 2 Silver Sluggers as a pitcher. So I think for sure Bumgarner is going to stay in the National League. He likes to hit, wants to be able to hit as a pitcher. So I think he's going to stay in the NL. There's been a few different rumored destinations for Mad Bum. One of those being the Atlanta Braves. The Phillies are in on pretty much everybody this offseason. They want to get somebody. I think also the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros could be interesting spots, but I think he's going to go to the Atlanta Braves or re-sign with the Giants. I'd have to pick Atlanta, though, because of the fact that he wants to compete. He wants to contend for another World Series. He's already won 3. So Bumgarner joining an up-and-coming Atlanta Braves team could bring that much-needed veteran presence to anchor down the pitching staff. Mad Bum to Atlanta would make a lot of sense to me. Gets to stay in the NL and hit, and is a veteran who gets a chance at running for 1 more ring.
I would definitely, it's a good position for him. I mean, Bumgarner has had a phenomenal career so far, and I think he definitely does deserve a Cy Young award, just because of how well he's played. But he's been playing against some really, really good pitchers in the NL. So the NL, when it comes to pitching, it's very tough, especially for the regular season. Once it comes to postseason for NL pitchers, they don't seem to show up. I mean, only this year is the only time where I've seen that with the Nationals and how well their pitching has grown throughout the postseason. But I think Bumgarner leaving the Giants would be really big. And like you said, potentially going and staying in the NL with the Braves, I think it would be a good fit just because of how young they are and how Bumgarner can really bring maturity to that team just because of his experience in the past.
It'd be an interesting fit for sure. The next and last free agent we want to talk about is another veteran, another guy who is highly accomplished, and another guy who had a decent season this year, bounced back, hit a lot of homers. That's Josh Donaldson, third baseman from the Atlanta Braves. I don't think he'll be re-signing with Atlanta. I think they're going to allocate their money elsewhere. They have young guys such as Austin Riley who can come up and play third base, George. So I think Donaldson's going to leave. I think he's going to go to one of 3 places: St. Louis Cardinals, Texas Rangers, or potentially the Phillies. And the Phillies make sense if they don't get Anthony Rendon. They could go for a guy like Donaldson for a little bit cheaper, a little bit less years, save some money there. But I think overall, I think he's going to go to the Cardinals. I think that makes a lot of sense for Donaldson. Mm-hmm. Head over to St. Louis with a good veteran team, and he'd mix in really well.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Cardinals, they got swept by the World Series champions, the Nationals. And if Donaldson does go to St. Louis, the way the Cardinals made it far in the postseason, going to the NLCS, and I think they needed something on the team, and I think Donaldson would be a good fit for them.
Yeah, he batted .260 this year, 37 homers. That is tied for second most in his career in a season. That's the most he's hit since 2016, where he hit 37 that year as well. Good bounce back year for Donaldson and a good chance for him to earn a 3-year contract. When we actually talked to Ken Rosenthal back a couple weeks ago as part of the Alex Few show, Rosenthal said that Donaldson's market could be looking at something around 3 years, $60 million. So a guy of good value for a nice veteran presence in that locker room.
It'd definitely be good for the Cardinals in the long run, especially if they want to make another postseason run like they did this year.
And the last guy we're going to talk about, he's not a free agent. He actually opted into his contract today. JD Martinez has decided to stay with the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox fans rejoice. He's been one of the best sluggers in baseball the last 2 seasons with Boston. That means he's here for 1 more year at least. And for JD, it's going to be the Red Sox kind of could be going through a retooling process, a rebuilding process, And what I want to ask, George, does JD opting into his contract kind of affect the Mookie Betts situation at all? And what I mean by that is, since JD opted in, are the Red Sox more likely to keep Mookie, who's entering the final year of team control, before he becomes a free agent? Now, if JD opts out of the deal, are the Red Sox more likely to trade Mookie? But now that JD is locked up for another year, it's going to be interesting to see what new GM Chain Boom does.
I think having JD on the team is kind of an incentive for Mookie to stay as well, and kind of stay with the Red Sox. But just because those two, they have a great chemistry together, and when you have JD and Mookie on the team, that's why you had the World Series Red Sox a few years back. And the question, to answer the second part of that question, if JD were to leave the Red Sox, I think that would open up an opportunity for Mookie to be traded, just because you don't want to waste talent like that if, one of your star players is gone and the other one is just kind of there on his lonesome with nobody else around him. Yeah. So I think the best, if this were to happen, if JD were to leave, then they would trade Mookie just to give him better opportunity to get more money, possibly maybe even a star player or two, just because of how much he's worth. But the Red Sox, they definitely need something, and if they're going to keep with what they have right now, I think they're going to be slowly rebuilding the next few years and starting to clear house, and that's what you're going to be seeing in the next few off seasons.
It's going to be a big decision-making process. The Sox with a new GM at the helm. Bloom's got a lot to do. He's young. He's got a lot on his plate this year, and it'll be interesting to see what he does, George. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking NBA. The Lakers have 5 straight wins. The Celtics are balling out. Is Kemba legitimately a good replacement for Kyrie? And we got some Steph Curry news. So make sure you stay tuned here on Midnight Mania Sports with George Hathaway and Austin DeCouta. We'll be back after a few brief messages here on Power 88.
Welcome back to Midnight Mania Sports with George Hathaway. Alongside me is Austin DeCouta, and we just wrapped up some free agent talks that could be potentially happening in the MLB, but now we're going to be jumping into the NBA. NBA is in full swing right now. We're heading into week 3. Some very interesting news. The Lakers, after losing their first game to the Clippers, are now on a 5-game win streak, and now they are first in the West. We talked a little bit, Austin, that the Lakers aren't going to be really that team that we thought they were going to be. LeBron, not in his prime that he used to be, is kind of slowly going into a decline. And as Max Kellerman would say, he's kind of falling off the cliff.
Well, LeBron is a guy who's going to continue to be effective no matter what he does on the court. He can make everyone around him better, and that's what he's going to have to do. But to start this season, LeBron's actually averaging 25.5 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds. So he's continuing to produce, continuing to score. And with the 11 assists, he's just making all his teammates that much better. And his record on the Lakers reflects that with a 5-1 start. You put some more talent around LeBron, and he's been able to succeed with guys who are consistent like Anthony Davis, who's absolutely been a monster so far.
Yeah, and there's a good case for Anthony Davis to be an early MVP candidate.
Averaging 28.5 points, 11.5 rebounds per game, almost 3 assists, and guy plays plus defense as well. So very early in the season, 6 games in, but you start to kind of peg the guys who are off to a hot start, especially on new teams, and he looks like he fits really well in LA. And if he can stay healthy, he's a guy who's going to dominate this season.
And Austin, talking about players who are on a new team and kind of being hot, let's take a look at Kemba Walker on the Celtics. He's averaging about 26 points a game, leading the team in scoring. And they're third in the East right now. How do you kind of see this Celtics team evolving early in the season after kind of a rough start?
Well, it's very interesting to me because after the Sixers game, the morale around Boston, the morale around the media was, oh man, this is another disappointing year. The Celtics aren't that good. They got blown out by the Sixers. And we saw a lot of negative talk about how they don't mesh, they don't play well, and Kemba's not legit. Celtics come back, they win 4 games in a row, looking good. Jason Tatum hits a game-winning shot over your boy RJ Barrett, the Duke product.
Whoa. Both of them are Duke products.
Yeah, but I know how big of an RJ Barrett fan you are, George.
No. I'm not a big RJ Barrett fan. I'm a big Zion fan. And I liked Jason Tatum. Me and my dad had this bet, actually, when Tatum got drafted to the Celtics. I go, Dad, if Tatum gets drafted to the Celtics, you owe me a Celtics Jason Tatum jersey. And to this day, I'm still waiting. But nonetheless, I like Jason Tatum more than RJ Barrett because I think he has more success in the league right now, even though for RJ Barrett, it's still early to tell. But, I mean, RJ Barrett, on defense, he's got scored twice on in clutch moments. One by Kyrie and one by Tatum. So, really, I don't think RJ Barrett is going to have that much success. But going back to Jason Tatum, he has been playing phenomenal. And I know, Austin, you are a huge Jason Tatum fan. You really like him.
I love Tatum's game,
Yes. The way he kind of plays, and when he works out with Kobe, and you can kind of see that Kobe in him when he plays, especially, as a young player taking a clutch shot in a big game. I mean, that's not really a big game, but it's a Celtics-Knicks game, and then always has a different meaning to it when those two teams are playing, kind of the Boston-New York rival going at it. And Tatum has been playing really well the past few seasons, ever since his rookie year. And coming into his third season, he's been playing really well. And
averaging 22 a game to start the year, averaged 15.7 last year. And Kyrie kind of, I think, took away from the development of JT a little bit. He's looking good to start this season, and I think he meshes really well with Kemba.
He does. And that post-game, interview that he had, Kemba was really excited until he said how much he loved Tatum, how he loved playing with him. And the chemistry. You wouldn't see Kyrie doing that last year because Kyrie would be the one taking that final shot.
Kyrie wants the shot. And what Kemba said, too, he said that was a huge, big-time shot, and they asked him about not being the one to take the final shot, and Kemba kind of said that, to paraphrase a little, he didn't really care about that. In Charlotte, it was always going to Kemba because they have nobody. Yes. I mean, Cody Zeller's not taking any game-winning shots anytime soon. Frank the Tank. Man, Charlotte really messed up. That's a whole discussion for another day. But they got Terry Rozier now, so at least they'll get their fair share of ridiculous three-pointers. So
yeah. And going back to that Kemba statement, he's being humble.
And it's good to see that, too. It's good to see the Celtics team meshing. And Kemba said that he didn't care if he doesn't take the shot. He's happy to see Tatum, and a win's a win. Which last year with Kyrie would have said, well, it's good for Tatum. That's it. Good for him. You know what I mean?
He would have been praising him and saying, how great of overall, Kemba kind of reminds me of Brady in a way. When people ask Brady about his milestones, he goes, well, football's a team sport, and we did it as a team. And that's what I kind of see that in Kemba when, he's asked about Tatum's shot and not how he wasn't the one taking it. Overall, to him, a win's a win. And if they can get that as a team, not as an individual, but as a team, I think it's a win regardless. Even if they do lose and if they play well together as a team, I think for their morale, it's a win. And that's why I think the Celtics team, even though they're third, I think they can go far. Just because of how much heart and passion they have together and how well they just mesh well.
And they should be getting some more help soon. Enes Kanter may be back from his knee injury within the next week or so. Romeo Langford is heading up to Maine with the Red Claws to work on some rehab, to play in a little bit of those games. He was the 14th or 15th pick in the draft, first round pick for the Celtics this year. Langford could be a nice scoring option off the bench because the Celtics bench hasn't been that good this year.
Right.
They've struggled. Carson Edwards has been inconsistent. He got a haircut. Maybe that can help save the day. That helped save Kyrie at one point. Kyrie got a haircut and then balled out for 4 games. Jaylen Brown got a haircut. That hasn't worked yet. But I'm not a big believer in the whole haircut saves the jumper.
What's the superstition you have here? I mean,
I've seen it before. I mean, you look at Dan Greenberg on Twitter. He tweets it too. He says the haircut could save a jump shot.
So LeBron, what's up with his haircut then? I mean, he's balding. He's balding at this point. He brought back the headband though. I mean, the headband LeBron. That's a scary time.
Back in Miami.
That's what he did in Miami. Yeah.
But for this Celtics team though, Langford should give them a nice boost off the bench. And one of the questions, we'll answer a couple fan questions when we, get a chance. But one of the ones that we got that makes sense is if the Celtics trade for a center, do you see them trading for a center? And if they do, who would they possibly get?
I would like to see Andre Drummond come to the Celtics.
Well, the thing is with that is that's just not possible.
Well, he's going to be a free agent next year, and I think that could be.
They don't have the cap for that, though, unfortunately.
If you do some house cleaning, and potentially you could.
The only way that the Celtics get Drummond is they're over the cap now because they re-signed Jalen to that $20+ million a year deal. So the only way they get Drummond is if they trade Hayward to Detroit, like now. And I don't see them doing that because, well, they could, but I don't see Detroit taking that. And Drummond doesn't really fit this, like, the Celtics, though.
You don't think so?
No, the Celtics like to spread the floor, and even with the guys they're putting in at center, last year Horford spread the floor well. Even going back to before Brad got here with KG, was able to spread the floor a little bit more. And when Brad first started here, he had Sullinger who could spread the floor, who could stretch the floor. Wasn't a down-low interior guy. And then Horford transitioned over to Cantor, who is more of an offensive rebounder, not as much as Drummond. Drummond is a guy you stick in the post who literally cannot hit a jump shot. And with Daniel Tice, with Vincent Poirier, with even Aaron Baines last year hit some threes. But Drummond is a guy who I don't think fits too well.
It's tough.
And I don't think the Pistons are interested in trading. I'd love to see it if they got him, but I don't think it can happen.
But it's tough because there's not a lot of like all-around centers in this league that would fit with the Celtics organization. The Celtics have Taco Fall, but how much are you going to be utilizing him throughout the season? He's not. He's doing well, but he's had like a few games with some playing time late into a game. But other than that, Taco Fall, you worry about his stamina and his health in the long run if it comes to that. I mean, one of the taller players, one of the tallest player right now in the league, and you worry about how 7'7", so you worry about his height becoming and his height and his stamina coming into factor and how much playing time he could possibly be getting.
He's probably going to be most of the year with the Red Claws or getting some game action with the Celtics here and there. Saw him against the Knicks, jump in the game at the end in the blowout. But Brad Stevens is going to put him in games where he can get some experience or gain some value out of it. It's not just going to be all blowouts that he plays in. Brad wants him to get some kind of value or some kind of, experience out of playing these games.
I agree. Experience is going to be key for Taco Fall if he wants to last in the league.
And, we're talking about the Celtics, how they're starting to try and build and get to where they couldn't get with Kyrie. A team that is unraveling and a team that is coming crashing down, who I thought was going to have a good season, is the
let's put that,
Golden State Warriors. And George, I couldn't have predicted this. There's no way I would have known that Steph Curry was going to break his hand and Draymond was going to tear a ligament in his hand and D'Lo's banged up with an ankle injury. There's no way I knew that. Healthy Warriors team with Curry, D'Lo, Draymond, that's a good squad. That's still a good team. That's a team that makes the playoffs, a team that plays pretty well if Klay comes back in April.
No.
Yes, it is. It's on paper. I just said you can't say no. On paper, you have 3 all-star players: a guy who's won Defensive Player of the Year, a 2-time MVP, and a guy who won Most Improved Player. On paper, that team's good.
Well, listen. For all the listeners out there, Austin, a few weeks ago said that the Warriors are going to be a playoff team.
They are.
And like how you always come on me for saying the Cowboys are going to go to the NFC Championship
I said this before. Well, the difference is I said this before the season started when the Warriors
said this one game in that the Cowboys were going to be good. I said it one game in.
Well, either way, we will review the tape. But the difference is here, as I said this before, the Warriors even played a game when they were healthy. The Cowboys, the difference is with the Cowboys and the Warriors, the Cowboys have no track record of being good in the playoffs with Prescott and Elliott. Prescott and Elliott just do their best Tony Romo impersonation and can't finish in the playoffs. So the Warriors are coming off of, you have the guy at the point guard position who's a 2-time MVP, a world champion in the NBA, and who started a dynasty because of how good he is. You have D'Lo coming in. You have Draymond coming in, who's been to all of the championships with Steph. So the playoff experience is there. Anyways,
No.
sticking with the NBA.
I don't think. No, I want to say something right here. All right. I don't think the Warriors were going to be good this year just because the greatest player in basketball left their team. And I agree with Patrick Beverley that this is the beginning of their downfall.
Well, yeah, it is now that everyone's hurt. But the greatest player in whoever you're calling Durant the greatest player.
I think Durant's the greatest player in the league right now, but that's a different story.
Considering he's not even playing, you can't be the greatest player if you're hurt. Durant left OKC and Westbrook got him to the playoffs next couple of years. That went okay. And if this team's healthy, they're going to make the playoffs. You also said that the Pelicans are going to be an 8 seed, and how's that going for you?
They are currently... The Warriors are one. They're one game in front of them. I mean, the Warriors are 1-5.
Well, it's a race to the bottom here, George. For whoever's coming next for LaMelo.
What, 4 weeks? What do you have? 4 weeks left until Zion comes back. That's in my calendar. Until the day that Zion comes back.
By then, the Pelicans may be 1-15 if we're lucky.
No, they'll be more than that. But Brandon Ingram had a phenomenal game tonight against the Nets. They lost, of course.
Oh, good.
No shocker there. But
1-6 now, is that right?
1-6. So we're just slowly moving down. And they lost to the Nets. Brandon Ingram had a great game, though. In a post-game interview, he said he's a tough cookie.
And speaking of the Warriors, they are on their way to their second win of the year right now over a good Portland Trailblazer team. Where Eric Paschall, the rookie forward from Villanova, George, has 36 points and 13 rebounds in that game. Thank you very much. So the depth filling in, the guys are playing.
That's a one-time
Kai Bowman's
deal.
got 19 tonight. Golden State Warriors season.
Who are these players?
You should know their names now. I mean, they're guys who are contributing at the NBA level. No. Well, I mean, you got the Pelicans starting Jahlil Okafor getting 4 points in 20 minutes. So that's unfortunate. We have Zach Pascal walking in the league. And dominating. So,
and staying in the NBA, these 76ers are not undefeated anymore. They were as of early, this evening, but the Suns decided, and Devin Booker, to end that undefeated streak. The only undefeated team in the NBA was the 76ers until today.
And the Phoenix Suns are 5-2.
They're a good team. I don't know where this came from.
I think it's the former Celtic Aaron Baines over there.
Really?
Putting up 15, 7, and 6 tonight.
All right.
I don't think it's Aaron Baines, but this is a young team who's had time to develop, and I think they finally have a good mix where Ricky Rubio can control the point guard. He's a solid player. Booker's been good, and once they get DeAndre Ayton back, this Suns team is going to be a team that, if they can sustain this level of play, could sneak into the playoffs at the 8th seed. The Sixers are still a good team. Sixers are probably the team to beat in the East so far this season. And it'll be interesting to see how they carry the rest of the year.
Yeah, I do agree with you there with the 76ers. They look phenomenal right now. They look great. They're playing good team basketball. Embiid, Horford, Simmons. They're all playing good basketball. And they're tough, and they beat the Celtics. They handed the Celtics their only loss so far this season, knock on wood, but the 76ers are the team to watch out for. The Bucks are a team as well. And then other than that, then you have the Celtics.
Well, it's one of the most exciting NBA seasons of all time, George. And here at Dean College, we got one of the most exciting football seasons in a while.
Yeah, and we are witnessing history right in front of us, Austin. And you and I are very lucky to be broadcasting these games as well, as this is the first time in 10 years that the Bulldogs are seeking to win out their conference as they play Castleton University this week.
In that game, too, just to recap, Dean played Alfred State, and quarterback sophomore Terrell Watts had 260 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 5 of those TDs to Earl Burrow, who had 125 through the air. Quintus Reed brought in the other 2. It was a great game, exciting game, George. College basketball's tipping off today. Dean College football's going for, the conference win. They already have the ECFC, but they're going for a New England Bowl game. And then we got college basketball coming up shortly.
I cannot wait. College basketball starting. Duke plays tonight, 7 p.m. You won't be hearing from me for the next 4 months or whatever.
Yeah, number 4 ranked Duke.
They're going to beat
regressing from last
Kansas.
year.
I mean, they're going to beat Kansas. The leadership from Trey Jones, absolutely stellar. He can do it all, and they're going to beat Syracuse this year as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting teams in college basketball this year. Duke ranked 4, Kansas ranked 3, and it's going to be a very
Michigan
competitive
State
game.
should not be number 1 if you're going to
In
say
Kentucky,
that.
number 2, but there's a reason that teams are ranked where they are, George, and part of the reason is that Duke lost Zion, RJ Barrett, and Cam
That's
Reddish,
fine,
and you
but we
cannot replace that.
We gained Cassius Stanley, who has a higher vertical
So are
than
you
Zion.
saying a higher vertical doesn't mean that you're going to be successful? I know we discussed this before, but just because the guy can jump out of the gym doesn't mean anything. I mean,
Cassius
Gerald Green's got a
Stanley, Matt
vertical
Hurt,
that can jump up and
they're
blow off
balling
a
out
cupcake.
Joey Baker.
So are you saying that this Duke team is better than last year? No, there's no way.
No, I don't think so, but it'll be close. If they make it further in March Madness, which I think they will, they're my early favorites to win. I think that this Duke team, if they make it further and win, will be better than last year's team. But so we don't have a lot of time left on the show. And the Dean Bulldogs, they play their first game Friday against Framingham State. So basketball, this time of year, it's going to be interesting, but we're going to be jumping into questions here for the last few minutes on the show. Was last night's Patriots-Ravens game more about the Ravens or more about the Patriots?
More about the Ravens showing that they're
Definitely.
legitimate.
I agree. Did yesterday's Patriots loss come at a better time?
I think it came at a good time. It's heading
I
into a
agree.
bye week. You get to see that you have things to work on and that you can still adjust with them, and they have over a week to adjust and to make improvements to the defense as well as the offense.
How do you think the Patriots would look going into the bye week with a tough loss?
I think, like I said, this is a good time for the loss to happen, George.
It
I don't
is.
know what you think, but
I agree.
I think, they still look like they're a very good team, and they still look like the team to beat in the AFC.
They are. And the Patriots, I think they're going to get a lot of rest this week. I mean, a little bit of rest, but they're going to be out grinding. I know Bill's going to be on them throughout the next week, that they just need to work hard and go through the fundamentals as well. Something I saw on ESPN today is Kawhi like Michael Jordan.
Kawhi is very similar to MJ in terms of they're both generational talents. Kawhi is an incredible two-way player, and you can see Kawhi's changed his game completely. Started in San Antonio as a guy who could shoot the three, could attack the rim. He has added an incredible mid-range shot. He has added these shots that he'll palm the ball, like you said, George. He'll turn his back to the defender and shoot like he's MJ. And there's a lot of his game. If you watch Kawhi, you see a lot of Jordan in that game.
You do. And people say Kobe's like Jordan, and he kind of changed his game.
Kobe's Kobe, you know what I mean?
Kobe's Kobe. But the thing is, between Michael Jordan was great at defense as well, and Kobe Bryant wasn't. And the way you said it perfectly, that Kawhi's a two-way player, and the way how he kind of just plays just like MJ is just very similar. They will never be compared as greatness as points or championships. But I mean, Kawhi. I mean, he has his fair share of rings.
He does. Kawhi's a good player. A couple more questions, George. Is Lamar Jackson the real deal?
I think he is. Lamar Jackson definitely is the real deal. He reminds me a lot of Michael Vick.
Gotta stay healthy.
Yes, and out of prison if we compare him to Michael Vick.
I don't think that's a problem for
No,
Lamar.
I don't think it will be as well. But he's a great two-way player. He can run the ball and he can throw the ball as well. And he kind of, he ran right through the Patriots defense literally. So
we'll see if Lamar can continue to improve the rest of the year. Last question, George. Are we concerned if we play the Ravens in the playoffs?
no, because it'll be in New England, and January football in New England at Gillette Stadium is a different type of atmosphere. And I don't think the Ravens would be ready for that, especially with this team that they aren't really used to playing in New England. Lamar Jackson, I don't think he'll know what hit him.
Well, it'll be an interesting rest of the season for the Patriots. We'll be sure to discuss that more next week, George. We had a lot to talk about today, and I think we covered a lot, especially with those Dallas Cowboys. But
How about them Cowboys, Austin?
how about them Cowboys?
Well, that'll wrap things up here on Midnight Mania Sports with Austin DeCouta and George Hathaway on WGAO Power 88. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Midmania Sports. That's MID Mania Sports. Thank you for listening, and good night.
For